All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and get started. For those of you that have never, ever been on my Zoom before, my name is David Adam Kurz. I am your coach. I am the owner of the Freedom Organization and coaching and consulting company, and we focus on real estate coaching. And so we have a lot of fun with this. I know a lot of you guys are from our company, LPT Realty. Some of you are not. This is a safe zone, guys, so you're good to go here. But today's like extra special, and this happened last minute, by the way. Dr. Abelson is amazing. I sent him a message yesterday and I said, hey man, can you come in on a Thursday with me at 11 a.m.? He's like, well, I'm going to be out the country next week. So how's tomorrow? I was like, okay, let's do it. Right. So I'm really excited to introduce him. But before we get started, you guys know that it is an absolute freedom day. So you got to go to the chat box. You have to write that in there. It's a freedom day. Let's get it out, guys. Thank you, Courtney. It's a freedom day from Cypress, Texas. Love you, brother. I love it. I love it. Get in that chat box, write it out. It's a freedom day. Why do we do this? Because we need to get those endorphins running. You need to understand why you're here to begin with. Thank you, Jeannie, Penny, Mary, Jeff, Joanna, Adriana. Thank you, guys. This is it right here. This is what tells you why you're here. You're here to create your personal freedom, whatever that means to you. You know that I love each and every one of you, and I want all of you guys to find your success, whatever that means to you. My success, I've said it to you a million times before, financial freedom and location freedom. Those two are very important to me, right? The freedom to be able to send my kids to whatever school they want, although I am encouraging them to stay close to home, but that's a bad thing, right? And I'm super excited to be here with you today because typically we try, we spent a lot of time talking about working with buyers and sellers over the last few weeks. And actually over the last few weeks, we've really come up with techniques, and we've talked about the psychological portions of working with a buyer, working with a seller, and understanding them and being able to truly mirror their personalities or their behaviors, right? And we have a couple times mentioned the DISC profile, and we've spoken a little bit about it, but we haven't gotten deep into it. And so one of the things that I promised you guys was that we would get a bit deeper into the DISC profile. And then it just hit me. Why don't I email Dr. Abelson? So Dr. Abelson is the CEO and president of the Abelson Group. He's an instructor at Central Michigan University, former associate professor at Texas A&M, former graduate assistant at Pennsylvania State University. I mean, the guy's got the resume, right? But he's known as the DISC doctor. And he's got an amazing company that really has platforms that study behavior. Not personality, but behavior, people's behavior. And so oftentimes when we say the DISC profile, we really just go immediately into personality profiles. But this is really an understanding of somebody's behaviors, right? And so with Dr. Abelson, he'll talk about it a little more, but you could have two high D personalities, right? Part of the DISC, D-I-S-C, which we'll get into in a minute. The DISC profile, that high D, right? Two different people can be super high Ds and be completely different people. And it really extends from why they do what they do every day, what they've gone through in their lives, the backgrounds, the history, the things that made them who they are today, right? And I am a super duper high D, like 99.9%, right? And then I'm like a 90% high I, and then my S and my C fall under 10%. Like that's my profile. I'm a big advocate for taking this profile exam every single year. I think, life takes you in directions, and you may have adjustments and shifts because of your business or because of your life, or things happen, right? Life happens. So I want to introduce Dr. Abelson to you guys. I'm going to pin him up to the top so everybody can see him. Thank you, Dr. Abelson, for doing this with me. I really appreciate you.
My pleasure, David, and thanks for the invitation.
Man, it's my honor. My honor. So you guys know how I met Dr. Abelson. I was going through a coaching certification course, and Dr. Abelson was a big part of that certification course. And so I understand Dr. Abelson's systems, and I've recently become a partner in what Dr. Abelson offers, allowing me the opportunity to do DISC profiles for my coaching students and for folks that I work with, which is extremely amazing, because when you think about that, it's a huge benefit to really understand someone's behavioral and personality and understanding of their background before you begin to coach them into anything. Am I wrong, Dr. Abelson?
Absolutely, because as we all know, everybody's different, and it's really interesting. Just briefly, when people think of the disc, they think there's one disc. There's actually over 40 current discs out there, and they're all different, and they use different formulations to come up with what the answer is. And that's why it's sometimes you'll hear people say, well, it really wasn't that accurate, or they don't believe in it, or things of that nature. It's probably because they're not using a very, very good disc. The one that we use, we didn't create, so we can use any of them. And without a doubt, I just did a program on Monday. There weren't a lot of people there. There were 15 people who took the assessment, and 9 of them said it was 100% accurate, and the other 6 said it was 95 to 99% accurate. So be careful with the assessment that you're taking, whether it's a behavioral assessment, which the DISC is, or whether it's something else. There are a lot of really good assessments out there. There's a lot of crappy ones out there as well. So make sure the one that you're using is going to have a high. It's referred to as validity, but it's basically, it actually measures what it says it measures. That's why whenever we do it, we always ask, what is the accuracy for you? And the results are just astounding, because it is, the disc that we use actually gets renormed every couple of years, okay? Because languages change, and the report seems to get more and more accurate. What I'd like to focus on today is not just the DISC behaviors, but there's another assessment that we use just as much, and that looks at what drives the behaviors. And when people go through our certification program, and we talk about the motivators, or what motivates somebody's behavior, all of a sudden it clicks, and it's kind of like, wow, now I understand what David was talking about, where you have 2 people who have the very, very similar DISC behavioral profiles, but they're very, very different people. One of the reasons for that is it's what is driving that behavior, what motivates them. For example, some people are motivated because they like to have structure. So they want to be in a situation that gives them a lot of structure. So if you're doing a listing presentation and that person is the type of person who we refer to as traditional, and they like a lot of structure, they're going to want you to take them step by step by step through the listing presentation. There are other people who we refer to as individualistics, and they like to be the ones who set the structure. So in that case, what you want to do is you want to say to them, well, I have this large presentation we can do, but what would you like us to do? Right? Or what would you like me to do? Or how would you like me to make the presentation? Or what are the important things for you? There's a lot of ways to ask the same question, but they need to feel in control. So you have 2 different people, 2 very, very different ways of looking at structure, and you're going to lose or disengage one of them if you choose the wrong way to actually start the presentation. Does that make sense?
Yeah, huge sense. So I want to ask you this. What are some of the, can we just kind of go through it real quick and talk about what the D, the I, the S, and the C are real quick, so that we have an understanding? Because I'd like to kind of get into, based on what you were just discussing, what are some of the key behavioral aspects that we can look for as real estate agents when we're sitting in front of a seller or a buyer, so that we can begin to work through their behavior and their personality?
Right. Well, let me use one of the wheels behind me, okay, to get the message across, because I find that a lot of people are visual. So that's one of the reasons I put this background. All right. Over here is our disc wheel. All right. Now, if you've taken our disc, let me explain how the disc wheel works. The more somebody's symbol is to the top of the wheel, the more task oriented they are. The more their symbol is to the bottom of the wheel, the more people oriented they are. The more their symbol, is to this side of the wheel, they have an internal focus. They look within themselves to gather data, to make decisions, to do all those types of things behaviorally. The more they are to this side of the wheel, the more they look outside themselves. All right. So these are the type of people, when they walk into a room, they check out who's talking to who, what the room looks like, all those different aspects of the room. So when you're walking into somebody's house, All right. If you're the type of person who checks out what are on the walls or who's in the room with you or things of that nature, then you're going to be probably more on this side of the wheel. This is where the D's and the I's are. Now, let's get into answering your question more specifically, David. A D, all right, is on the top part of the wheel, and they have an external focus. So they are task oriented with an external focus. So they are competitive, right? They are decisive. They have a sense of urgency. Don't be surprised if these people, if you slow down, they finish your sentence for you. Some of you might be fairly intense D's yourself, and you go around. If somebody is hemming and hawing, or they're taking their time with something, you get impatient, and you finish their sentence for them, or you start to get disengaged. I'm talking like an S right now. All right. So what will happen is if I keep talking like this for another 10 or 15 seconds, if you're an intense D, you're going to say, get on with it, guy, or you're going to actually physically start to get disengaged as well as mentally disengaged. All right. So what is an I? An I is somebody who has an external focus, but is people oriented. So they're very optimistic, right? They like to talk to people. A stranger is a person who they haven't had the chance to befriend yet, right? So there are those types of behaviors that go with that. They're also typically fairly loyal. They like when you can make reference to somebody who they like or respect. That will hold them, okay, you to them a little bit more. So there are those types of behaviors. What is an S? An S is somebody who's people oriented, but has an internal focus. So they're more from the heart or from the gut, right? So they are the type of people who are really into family. They're into relationships. Well, their nonverbals are typically hard to read. The I's are typically very, very expressive. They'll use their hands a lot, right? Everything is written all over their face. Whereas the S's, you're just struggling to pick up the nonverbal cues from them because they keep to themselves, because they don't want to give you too much information about themselves, because they want to make sure that you like them and you respect them. So they're going to hold back that nonverbal because they don't want to do anything that is going to frustrate you or anger you in the relationship. And what are C's? They're task-oriented with an internal focus. So where do they operate? They're more cognitive. They operate from the head more. So they're into detail. They're into quality, right? When you're coming in, you're going to see typically their house is very, very organized, or the room that you're in is very, very organized. Everything has its place, right? If we want to get stereotypical, we can get into what an engineer is like. And the old engineers, when they used to have pockets, all right, and they used to have pens and pencils, you would see their pens and pencils in this pocket holder because they didn't want to get their shirt dirty. All right. So it held it. When you walk in, you look at their desk and everything is where it's supposed to be on the desk. When you walk into a D, typically they don't have a whole bunch of stuff. All right. But it's not really organized. What the I is, everything is everywhere. All right. On the desk. So you can take a look at that and you can get a picture. If you walk into somebody's house and there's family pictures all over the place, it's probably somebody who is much more on the S type of scale. Now, I want you to keep in mind a couple important things regarding this, because I don't want you to over stereotype people. You can have somebody who's an S who has D-like behaviors. We call it a blend. So what happens is most discs only look at 24 or fewer different behavioral profiles. Our disc looks at 384. That's why it's the most accurate one out there. That's why that's the one that we use. Because if you're going to use it for hiring, if you're going to be using for communicating or figuring out what somebody is like, it needs to be accurate. If you're going to be using it for reassigning people, for those of you that are coaches, you can use our assessment to help somebody reassign somebody within their team. We actually have a team report that helps you do that. So there's all kinds of neat things that we can help you with, and David can help you with in order to make that happen. You can set up an account with us yourself if you want to. In fact, later, David, I'd like to put a couple QR codes up so people can actually, go to our website and or enroll in our certification program if they're interested in learning more about this.
Awesome.
So this gives you some insight as to what's going on. Now, I said, let's talk about disbehaviors, but also let's talk about what motivates people. So I gave you a little hint on the motivating aspect at the beginning of this, where I said some people like structure. So give them structure. Some people don't like structure. So give that. So let them be in control. All you have to do is ask them a simple question, right? And that is, How would you like to proceed? Would you like me to structure everything for you, or would you like to have some control over what's going on? They'll tell you. All right, you probably have a presentation put together, so why don't you just do your regular presentation? That's going to be somebody who wants you to structure it for them. Structure it for them. There's going to be much more connection that way. Some people might say, well, there's a couple questions I'd really like you to get into. And first of all, I want to know how much you think my house is worth. Okay. Isn't that what you typically get? With a D, they're not going to let you get past that question until you answer it. All right. With the yes, they're probably not going to ask that question because it's too confrontational. Right. So these are different aspects. Now, let's get back to the motivators. There are some people who are very utilitarian. Now it's interesting. We have two different models that we use to understand what motivates people. One of them deals with 6 aspects, and I'm just going to use that today because we only have a little bit of time. Some of this deals with the other one deals with 12 aspects. But whether you're looking at the 12 aspects or the 6 aspects, only one of them has anything to do with money. All right. So if you're using it to coach, or you're using it to manage your own staff, or helping somebody else manage their staff, keep in mind, only one of the 6 motivators has anything to do with money. It's called utilitarian. It deals with efficiency of resources, whether that resource is money, whether that resource is people, whether that resource is machinery, whether that resource is time. They're very, very ticklish with this. So if they come in and you ask them, how much time do we have? Well, you have as much time as you want, but no more than 30 minutes. That's utilitarian. So you got to deal with that. If you're Mike Furrier, all right, he would tell you the listing presentation shouldn't be more than 15 or 20 minutes. I personally don't buy into that because I want to form a relationship, but that's my style. There are some people who are very, very Mike Furrier-ish, and and they believe that. And it's kind of like bam, 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 bam. All right, sign on the dotted line, and I'm out of here. And wouldn't you want me to be like that all the time so we can sell your house more quickly, or whatever lines you use? Right. As we're going through this, one of the things that I'd like you to do is, and I'm not going to look at the chat, but David, can you look at the chat to see if people have questions?
Okay. Yeah, I'm on it.
Okay, cool. Ask the questions. But anyhow, we have this utilitarian. They're into this efficiency of their time. They have this incredible sense of urgency. But there's somebody who's very different from that. And we refer to that as social, but it's not a fun social. It's a selflessness social. These are the type of people who donate, then give their time. These are the type of people that are like Mother Teresa-ish, right? Where it's always about somebody else. Utilitarians is typically about them and what their needs are. The social is about what somebody else is about, right? And they have a hard time saying no to different things. But anyhow, they're going to be much more forgiving. They're going to be much more interested in you as a person. They might start asking you questions about yourself. The utilitarian probably couldn't care less, especially if he or she is a D, all right? Because they're into what needs to get done quickly. I'm an important person. I have a lot of things that have to get done. But keep in mind, again, as I mentioned a couple minutes ago, we don't want to stereotype people because there could be blends. So you need to look at this. And if all of a sudden you're seeing a whole bunch of stuff that reminds you of a D, then you can be more D-ish. But you have people, one of the neat things about this wheel, okay, the behavior wheel, is people can be anywhere within this wheel. There's 60 different spaces. And depending on where you are in the wheel tells us what your behavioral style is. And it tells us what kind of blend you have. Only 7% of the population is pure D, I, S, or C. And that's from our disc. Now, I said before, there's over 40 different discs out there. So you might hear different percentages of how many people are Ds, Is, S's, and Cs. That's because they're looking at their database. All right. So now we do 35 to 40,000 assessments a year. And we just started offering this limitless license where you can get as many assessments as you want for one fixed fee, which is really phenomenal. So we're probably going to run over 100,000 assessments this year.
That's amazing. So let me ask you, so let me ask you this, and just so that the folks that are logged in can understand, what are some of the behavioral, let's start with a high D, right? What are some of the things I'm looking for? I'm walking into a listing appointment. What are some of the things I'm looking for to recognize a high D? And we can go through D, I, S, and C. So two-part question. What are some of the things I'm looking for to understand they're a high D? And
Right.
how should I work with them?
Okay. Well, we'll start with the Ds because they're the most impatient. All right. Um, look for power things. All right. Do they? If it's a man, does he have a Rolex watch, or does he have an expensive watch? All right. If it's a woman, do they have expensive jewelry on? All right. Are they using a customized pen or pencil, that is expensive, or are they using, one of the number 2 pencils, type of thing that you can get for 10 cents? So, what is the power, right? Do the walls exemplify power, right? Also, typically what happens is things aren't really cluttered with the C's or the D's. They might be much more cluttered with the I's and the S's, right? So what do you want to do with the D? They're very competitive. They want to win. You never want to get in a fight with somebody who's an intense D. And it's interesting, some of you are intense Ds. So you have this agenda that you have for the listing presentation. And every once in a while you get with another intense D and you're kind of like rams butting heads, right? When that's the case, hey, ease up, slow down, let them feel in control. You want them to feel in control. These need to feel like they're going to win. We're going to structure a win-win for you so we can get as most money for your property as possible if that's important to you. Are you interested in getting the most money? Or are you interested in getting it sold quickly? What are your goals? What would you like for me to do? And how can I serve you better? These love that kind of stuff. Is that what you were hoping for, David?
Yes, absolutely. So what am I looking for? Same question, but now I got a super high I.
Okay, with the high I, what's going to happen is they're going to be very, very expressive. They're going to be, they're going to greet you with this, huge personality, at the door as you walk in. They're probably going to shake your hand, or maybe even, kind of want to give you a hug, even though that's not so much, it's accepted anymore. All right, but don't be surprised if they kind of do that. You have to decide how you want to respond. All right. Right. Also, they're typically going to have bright colors. So don't be surprised if they're wearing red, or if they're wearing something like that. Typically, the D's and the C's are wearing more muted colors, but with the D's, it's going to be more power. With the C's, it's going to be everything is in the right place. All right. So those types of things are going on. Back to the I's. All right. So what happens is you don't want to just jump into your presentation with the I. You want to form a relationship. You want to see how they're doing. Tell me a little bit about more your spouse, about your kids, this, that, and the other thing. Would you like to show me your house? Right. The D doesn't have time for that. The I is going to be proud of the house and is going to take you through there and, and do those types of things. Again, you have to decide how you want to spend your time, but that would be a way to do it. With the S's, for sure, I recommend that you say, would you mind showing me your house so I can get a better feel for it? All right, because that's going to be a huge way to connect with the S's.
So
right?
with the high D, what we're saying is we want to understand what point they're trying to achieve and address that point.
Yes. What are their goals in the relationship? Don't assume you know what they are. Right? What are their goals? What do they want to do? They're probably going to think their house is worth more than it definitely is. Right? So you're going to have to work with that. There's all kinds of tools that you have to do that. Right? But keep that in mind. Right? The S's are going to be very, very different there. They're going to be willing to please you. But the unfortunate thing with the S's is they might not come out and tell you things. So you have to be more questioning. You have to ask them more questions, because you're going to leave and they're going to make judgments when you walk out that door.
So that's a good segue. So high D, understand the point, try to address the point as efficiently as possible. High I, we can talk, we can have conversation, we can talk about families, we can deepen the relationship. It's great opportunity with a high I to really get into a relationship with them, versus another realtor that might come in, not even recognize their high I and just try to get to the point. Now the high I is kind of disappointed they didn't get to tell their story, right? And then we segue right into the high S, which you just mentioned right now, which could have similar behavioral aspects as the D, except you've got to dig for it now.
Right. And so you have to ask the questions, but you can't be too in their face. You can't be too quick and assertive. I'm slowing down intentionally now because that's where the S's feel more comfortable. So, and ask permission to ask a question in some cases, especially if it's an assertive question. And then look closely at their nonverbals, because it's going to be hard to read those nonverbals. Right now, let me go back to the eye a little bit, because with the eye, if you're fortunate enough and you've sold somebody a house on their street, right, or if it's in a condo, you could ask them, do you know so-and-so? I've worked with so-and-so, especially if it was a good relationship. That way they'll check you out with them, right? But you're dropping names, and with eyes, that goes a distance. Right? Don't be too obnoxious with it. But if you do know somebody on the street, or maybe something comes up with their religious organization or their church, or, something like that, and somebody in that church, ask them, don't volunteer that they're a friend of yours, right? Because they might not like that. Okay. But it's okay to ask if you know so-and-so, and then watch their reaction before you start sharing too much. All right, let's go back to the S's. So you need to move a little bit more slowly, and you need to.
How are we identifying them first? How are we identifying the S?
Well, what's going to happen with the S as far as how they're dressed? They're going to be much more relaxed, right? They might not seem as organized, right? They might not seem as intelligent. That is a wrong assumption. There is no relationship between behavioral style and level of intelligence, even though D's seem to think the S's are slow and aren't as bright as they are. Don't make that assumption, right? They're going to be much more laid back. So they're going to be wearing muted colors. It might be, if they're wearing yellow, it's going to be a pale yellow. It's not going to be an in-your-face yellow. If it's blue, it's not going to be a bold blue. It's going to be more muted. Right? They're going to be using their hands less often. Nonverbals are going to be less often. If you're struggling to figure out nonverbally, what's going on for them, they're probably demonstrating a lot of their S that's coming out right now. Now, just because you've labeled them as an S doesn't mean that they might not have some D, I, or C characteristics as well. So be sensitive to that. Again, the blending aspect. All right.
That's amazing. And so working with an S, you just mentioned, because I was thinking to myself, knowing who I am, right? Where you said, ask for permission to ask questions, right? Is it okay if? And so that's a really great key, because that S needs to feel like, yes, it's okay to ask that question. Whereas if you did the same thing with a high D, the high D would be thinking to themselves, you just freaking asked me a question. Can we just get to the point? Right? Is that
right?
And all right, so now let's get into
now, let me mention one other thing regarding the S. Okay, demonstrate respect for the S. You need to demonstrate respect for everybody, but it's important to really demonstrate respect for the S, because they're used to people looking down at them because they're moving a little slower, and there is a nonverbal assumption that they're not as bright. So demonstrate you respect them as a person, and by asking a question is just one of the many ways to demonstrate the respect.
Amazing. All right, now let's get into high C's. How do I recognize a high C? How do I communicate and work with this person?
All right, what's going to happen with a high C is they're going to be looking at detail, right? Everything's going to be together on them. You might not like what they're wearing, right? It might not be, the latest style, probably not, all right? But it's going to be together. Now, there's a difference. D's also come across that way, but the C's aren't going to be as glitzy as the D's are, or as status oriented as the D's are. Right. So what's going to happen is, the things will be organized. They are going to be more intellectual. They're going to be more cognitive. They're not going to get into the emotionality of things. So you can ask them the questions, when I'm presenting your house to somebody else, what are the features that you recommend I present it to? They're going to get into the cognitive stuff. whereas the S's and the I's are going to get more into the feeling stuff or the family stuff, and those types of things, right? What's going to happen with both the D's and the C's, they're typically going to be wearing blacks or grays or blues. They're not going to be wearing anything that's really fancy or standing out regarding the colors. Again, the D's are going to be more status oriented. The C's are not going to be status oriented at all. So there are those types of things. Now, if there's newspapers or if there's books around, right, that's another telltale sign of what's happening. What kind of books are around? Are they fashion books? Are they books about homes? Are they books about travel? That's going to be more your S or your I. If they're books about profession, or if they're books about a certain specialty or things of that nature, that's going to be more your D or C. And the C's then again are going to get into the more cognitive, the more detail, the more quality. So they're going to be interested in quality. One of the issues with a C is 125% may not be good enough for them. All right. So they're going to expect perfection from you. So you might want to figure that out, ahead of time as far as what are their expectations of you. And that will give you that's a great question to ask any of the styles, because that will get you give you some insight regarding what they're like, right? The C is going to want it to be, it to go right and to get the price that at whatever price that you say is the right price, that's going to be, they're going to be beholden, and they're going to hold you beholden to that price. Now, a lot of times a strategy to get a listing is to tell them that the house is worth more than it really is, right? Well, if you do that with a C, it's going to be hard to get them to come down on the price. I'm telling you that right now, right? Because they're going to say, well, that was the price that you gave me before. Why is it different? Why are you telling me I need to decrease the price now? So there's going to be some issues with that. The D is going to be, well, do we have to decrease the price to sell the damn thing? As they get frustrated with it. So there'll be different types of reactions with the price.
It's interesting that you're saying that, because I'm dealing with a C right now, and it's impossible to lower the price on her house. And here's the best part. The conversation about lowering the price happened at the listing appointment. So we spoke about the price it would go up on, and we spoke about the price we needed to be in 30 days if it didn't move yet. And I explained the different levels of understanding where, how we can identify whether the price is high or low based on contracts, offers, views, etc. And she understood it all. But to get her to lower her price now, even though we had the whole conversation. So that's a really great point, Dr. Abelson. Folks need to understand, if you're working with a C, you better list it for what you intend to sell it for. Don't test the market. Not with them. With a high D, you can test the market. You can say, and so I recognize a high D and I'll say, are you in a rush to sell? No, I'm not. Is it okay if we play and test the market? Right? And they'll say, sure. And sometimes I'll list it a little higher just to see what happens, because you never know in Miami, Florida, right? And then if it doesn't sell, I go back to the D and I go, hey, it's been 30 days. We're not moving it. And so let's go ahead and get to the price that we need to get you under contract. Is that okay? Yes, it is. A D is going to go, great. A C is going to go, no, you said this. I want this.
Right. So now, so what you might do to protect yourself, right, during the listing presentation is say, now, don't be surprised if other agents tell you it's worth more. Right. I'm being precise with you now. This is where the market is right now. It can change a little, it can go up, it can go down a little bit, but this is where the market is now. And it is a strategy for people to come in and give you a higher listing price in the listing presentation because they want your business. When you work with me, I'm going to tell you the truth as far as what I believe. Okay. And that's why you're working with me, because I'm going to give you giving you the real deal answer. Okay. And I'm not going to try and manipulate the situation because of that.
Okay. So
there's a question they'll like that.
There's a question that came up that said, are there general questions that you could ask that would help identify a person's DISC or behavioral personality?
Yeah, and one of the questions I like to ask is, what are your personal goals in the sale of your home? If it's a listing presentation, if you're out there with buyers, what are your personal goals? right? If they're talking about efficiency and getting it done as quick as possible, that's probably your D. If they're talking about, it's got to, have the right room, it's got to, it's got to have the right feel for me, things of that nature, you're probably talking with an I. If they're talking about family, it's important that it be in a good school district. It'd be important that the schools are fairly close so we can have safety and how the kids get to school, especially if they're in elementary schools or things like that. That's probably more an S, and if they just want to get into the specifics, tell me as much as you can about what you're going to do for me, and how you're going to sell my house and this, that, and the other thing. That's probably more your C. But, what are your goals? What do I need to know? Another question is, what do I need to know about you personally so I can interact and work more effectively with you? And again, they're going to expose themselves to you regarding what type of person they are, and utilize that. And again, you might see a blending. You might see somebody who is that D or an I, who is very expressive but is very demanding, right? That's the DI. You might see somebody who is an SC. They're cognitive, but they also have feelings, and they're very concerned about helping people. Another aspect of S is they're very stepwise. All right, they want to know where the end point and how you're going to get to that end point, so you can talk about that. The Ds don't care about the stepwise aspect. They just want you to get to the end and get done with it so they can move on with their life. So there are those types of questions that you can ask and get a feel for it. All right.
So those are
one of the things that
so
people
I want everybody to take note real quick. 2 amazing questions you can ask right up the front. What are your personal goals with this process? And tell me a little bit about yourself. What should I know about you? 2 great questions that you can ask right up front that'll help you identify the behavior of the person that you're working with. And so, Dr. Abelson, how important is it for a salesperson? Because we do sales training. I know it's real estate focused, but we do sales training. How important is it for a salesperson to understand someone's disc and to be able to mirror their behavior?
Oh, it's crucial. I mean, it's just crucial because they'll get disengaged from you if you're not mirroring, matching, them, who they are as an individual. And it's interesting, in our certification program, we actually have another slide that is how to sell to the different styles. The DIS or C. It's a slide just like the slide that's behind me, but we have specifics, all right, on what you need to do, right? For example, D's, sense of urgency. I's, all right, it's relationship. S's, it's supportiveness, it's respect, it's family. And C's, it's precision, it's accuracy. All right. So how is what you're going to do meet those particular goals? And then we get into much more specific aspects there. But let me throw another thing at you. And this is kind of interesting because people ask me, David, what you asked me to do today all the time. But if you get one of our licenses for our assessments, all right, it's 1 fee a month. And it's for a 12-month annual fee, but we only charge you monthly for it. All right. And you can give your clients an assessment. You can say to them, I'm going to comp you so I can interact with you more effectively. All right. I'm going to comp you a report. I'm going to give you a copy of it. It's going to take you less than 20 minutes to answer the questions, but it's going to show me how to more effectively communicate with you. It's going to show me how to more effectively meet your needs. And you know what? When they answer it, and some of them won't, but when they answer it, you're going to get a report that tells you all about them. It tells you exactly how to interact with them. So you don't have to have guesswork. All right. So, and we just started offering this. We've been offering it for years for Keller Williams. All right. But we actually did a deal with and we're the only ones in the world who are providers doing this with, even though they have a couple thousand distributors worldwide, where you can get this license from us. So, David, can I show the QR code for that? Is that all right?
Yeah, you sure can. Now I'm going to do a little secret giveaway here in a second, and then we're going to give everybody your information as well. So. While you're doing that,
let me do the share. There's actually 2 QR codes. All right. One of them is if you want the limitless license. All right. And literally for the price of 18 assessments, you can get 1,000 assessments. All right. So if you're interested in doing this, and if you have a number of people in your organization, you can use it with people in your organization. You can use it with your family. You can use it with people that are going to be clients or customers, et cetera, et cetera. The other QR code here is of our certification program, and we're starting the next certification program. Starts April 24th. They're all on the internet. They're all live, and I deliver them. So
that's amazing. And by the way, guys, I'm certified. It's an amazing program to go through. It really will help you become a better salesperson. Like that 100% will help you become a better salesperson. So I'm going to have a little bit of fun, Dr. Abelson, if you don't mind. So let's stop sharing the screen real quick because I want to show you something. I'm going to show you my wheel. And I'm going to show you my disc profile, and I'd love for you to assess me in front of everyone, if you wouldn't mind.
All right. I'm more than happy to do that.
Okay.
All right. So, all right. Well, I'm still sharing. You've stopped sharing?
You can stop sharing real quick. I'm gonna use the camera, so that way everybody can see it. Okay, here we go. So this is my profile.
Okay, tell me what the numbers are on the bottom. I can't see them. Hold on a second.
All right. So
I wasn't prepared for a quiz, but I always do.
So do you want adapted or natural?
Give me all 8 numbers. Start with the adapted. Okay.
Okay. So
adapted 1.
D is 92.
Okay.
I is 86. Yep. S is 4. C is 7. Natural is D is 100. I is 88. S is 7. And C is 14. So you guys can see what this looks like, guys. This is my personal disc profile assessment. And then this is my success insight wheel. And I'll show you that.
Okay. Do you have the motivators as well? So you're in space 12?
Here you go.
Aha. Okay. Right now, the yellow for everybody out there is the utilitarian. All right. The black is individualistic. All right. These are the ones who want structure. The utilitarians are the ones who want efficiency. All right. And that's the only one motivated by money. All right. And then we have the other 4, which are relatively low. And the lowest one is social, which is that the bluish one. Okay. What I do is I look at number 1 and number 2 and number 6. Right, when I'm interacting with people. So let me start with the motivators, David, if I may. All right. Now, one of the interesting things with that particular profile is when number 2 is individualistic, it magnifies whatever number 1 is. Okay, and your number 2 is individualistic, and so it magnifies your utilitarian. So when you're working with David, you need to be. Don't waste his time. Always ask him how much time we have. All right. Assume that you're going to have actually less time, all right, than you really have with him, because he's going to be thinking about other things. His mind's going to be racing in a lot of different directions, all at the same time. Right now, he doesn't have a whole bunch of selflessness with him, but that's fine, because we have to look at what people who they are and not who we wish they were. All right. So I'm not going to be able to motivate him by sharing how much I give and how much I do with the Rotary or how much I do with my church. He's going to think I'm wasting my time by doing those types of things. He would rather be, much more, effective going out and knocking on doors. All right. And if it's obvious somebody's not going to be interested in me, you leave your card or you leave your information and you walk to the next door. And if nobody's there, that's okay too. You just leave your stuff, and your stuff is developed in a way so they'll actually pick it up and read it and hopefully not throw it away. And he's going to want you to be really, really efficient, really, really structured, get it done, because there's this huge sense of urgency. All right. How am I doing, David?
Amazing. Amazing.
Okay. All right. Let's shift gears. Let's look at the disc. All right, because that's what you're more familiar with. Now, I'll train you in the certification program how to determine whether somebody's under stress, what's causing the stress, and how to help them deal with the stress just by looking at the graphs. Right now, all right. Now, looking at David's graphs, his natural style and his adapted style are very, very similar. So he is who he is, whether he's under stress or not under stress. Adapted is the mask that we put on and we wear, all right? And it's what we think we're supposed to be doing. The natural is what we're like when we're by ourselves with someone that we highly trust, or when we're under stress and we don't have the energy to keep the mask up. But in David's case, his natural and adaptive is very similar. Right? There are rules of thumb that I use, but he's not even close to them. Right? So he enjoys what he does too, right? Because it's a fit. The closer you have a fit between your natural and adapted, the more they love what they do. And when you're hiring somebody, you want to figure out where they should be behaviorally, and you want them to be very similar on that wheel. So when they're under stress and they're not under stress, they're the same person. Right? Does that make sense?
And that's the star in the circle here, right?
Right.
The closer they are
star
together.
is the adapted, and the bullet is the natural, as far as a symbol. And they're both in space 12. Now, what's interesting, our wheel is different from any of the other wheels. It's a true geometric form, meaning that the closer the symbols are to each other, the closer are their symbols. So in our team report, we actually plot everybody on that wheel. We plot everybody on the adapted wheel. We plot everybody on the natural wheel, so we can tell what the group is like when they're under stress and when they're not under stress. And then we plot a migrated wheel where we put them all together so we can see what the stressors are and what's happening. We can see what behaviors are being missed in your team. If there are any, we can see where you have too many overlapping behaviors. So you have too many people or a lot of people that are basically doing the same thing. So the team isn't functioning, right? Because there's something missing. So back to David and your graph, right? Your adapted was 92 on the D. It was 100 on the D, all right? So what happens is 8-point difference, no big deal, but it's telling me that when you're working, you're even more D-ish, right? So the truth of the matter is, if you're 100, we don't know if you're really at 100 or 110 or 115 or 120, because that's where the max is. So I would then test out when I'm interacting with you if it's truly 100, which is pretty darn high, or if it's actually higher than that. Just because it's at 100, 100's a special case. All right. Now, when we look at the eye, it's 86 and 88. 2-point difference, really not that different. So what we have is we have the DI, right? Behavioral style. It's interesting because that, and I don't have data to prove this. One of these days I'm going to do the study, but I don't have data to prove this, but I believe charismatic leaders are DIs. All right. So people that people flock to are going to be more charismatic. And they have those types of qualities. I've actually identified over 20 different charismatic qualities. I have an incredible charisma presentation that gets into that and shows you where you are and where you aren't regarding charisma is concerned. All right, but his profile is in that charismatic, area. Okay, it's just breaching on it, but it's still fairly charismatic. He's a little bit, David, you're a little bit more directive. If you're a little bit less directive, you would be perceived as being more charismatic. All right, so little hint there for you. All right, let's look at the S's. All right, the S's are very, very low. It's interesting. A lot of people say, just look at what's above the midline. It's craziness. You need to look at where every of the four is. By just looking above the midline on the graphs, it's like doing a task with one hand tied behind your back. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense at all. All right, so you want to look at the whole area here. So what we want to do is we want to see, okay, his S is 4 and 7, right? So don't waste his time. You can be emotional. You can be interactive. He wants you to be interactive, right? But he has a sense of urgency. He wants to get it done. Don't placate him, all right? Because the S is so low. And don't worry about his feelings, right? It's not going to be a big deal. If you hurt his feelings, he'll rationalize it, saying, I really didn't care anyhow. And or he'll be optimistic and say, I can deal with that. That's where the I and where the D comes in, but at the same time. Right now, we have the C, 7 adapted, 14 natural. All right, again, it's not that big of a difference, but it does give me a little hint that he's a little bit more detail oriented naturally, but because of his desire to get things done more quickly, he's going to be a little less detail oriented in what's going on. But either way you want to look at it, 14 or 7, he's relatively low on the need for detail. So he's good. If you're working with him, he's probably going to expect you to know what the detail is. He's kind of like a super agent. I've talked to so many agents, and the really good agents who ask them, what's your gross closed commissions so far this year? Oh, I don't know. Ask my assistant. Okay, how many properties have you listed, that you sold? What the hell do I care? All right, I'm having fun. This is working out, and I'm making a lot of money, so things are going fine, right?
That's
If you really want that detailed stuff, talk to my assistant. She or he has that, right? I don't know. Stop wasting my time on stuff like that. And I'm seeing some smiles here because that's some of you, So it's interesting as far as what happens.
That's crazy, because that's me to the T. That's exactly who I am. Like I like to know my numbers, but my assistant provides it on a weekly basis. Like that's the only way I'll know them. Otherwise, I'll never get to it. Right. So that's exactly me. The crazy part is, I'll share with everybody. The crazy part is, when I did this disc profile, you when you read it, you just sit back and laugh at yourself a little bit, because you read it and you realize that you're reading about yourself, and the things that you pretend to deny that you're not are in there saying that you are, and you go, man, I am so like that, and the beauty of taking this assessment, the beauty of reading and understanding your own assessment, is you almost become a little bit closer to yourself. You become, like Jeanette just said, you become aware of who you are as a person, which I believe is extremely important if you're going out to the world to connect with other people, right? So guys, Dr. Abelson, thank you so much for doing this with me. We got to close out, because we try to be respectful for everyone's time, and we finish up by 12 o'clock.
Well, if you could just share the QR codes again, so if anybody is interested in
share it again. I'm going to share it. So this is what I'm going to do, guys. Michael, can you please put your email address in the chat box? So ladies and gentlemen, Michael's going to put his email address in the chat box. I want you to take a screenshot of his email address. And
it's real easy. It's just Abelson@abelson.net. I'll tell you that.
No, Michael, my assistant. I'm sorry.
Okay, sorry about that.
So Michael.
Well, now you have my email too. So it's just Abelson, Abelson @abelson.net.
So here's the deal. This is what I want you to do, guys. Michael put his email address in there, my assistant, Michael@davidadamkurz.com. Take a screenshot of that or copy it. And I want you to send an email to Michael, and in the subject line, just put DISC. That's all I want you to do. Michael's going to collect. Now, make sure, your information is on there so we can be in touch with you. And this is what we're going to do for you guys, because you guys attended today. We've got 43 of you live right now. 42, because Dr. Abelson's not going to do this. But this is what we're going to do. We are going to do a DISC profile with you together. Okay. So you're going to get a DISC profile with me. And then what we're going to do is, I am going to also email you the QR codes for Dr. Abelson. I'm going to connect you with Dr. Abelson. And I want you guys to consider, and I get nothing out of this, guys. Like, this is not like I signed some referral agreement with Dr. Abelson. This, I would love for you guys to consider taking the course, the certification course with him. And the reason that I say this is because, first of all, you hear me say it all the time, invest in yourself, right? Invest in your education, learn. But the psychological part of sales has a lot to do with behavior and personality. It's not only how you communicate your sales tactic, it's understanding the other person on the other side of the table so that you come with the proper behavior to get that person to believe that you are the person that will get the job done. How do you get somebody to know, like, and trust you? You get in front of them, you mirror their behavior, you have great conversation with them based on their personality, their goals, their needs, their wants and desires, and you walk away with that listing, or you get them under contract as a buyer. And the best part is that if you can do this very, very, very well, Jen, I got you, Jenny. if you can do this very, very well, you will sell more real estate than anyone else, because you will have a true psychological understanding of the people that you're communicating and building relationships with. That's huge. That is huge. That is the biggest piece that you're getting out of this. So I want you guys to consider taking the course, because I think it's phenomenal. It's game-changing. It's life-changing. And you'll just become a better salesperson all the way around. So super blessed to have you here, Dr. Abelson. Thank you so much. I know you're traveling next week, so safe travels to you. Thank you for everything that you did with us today. Guys, don't put your email in the box. Email Michael at davidadamkurz.com. He put his email in there. Screenshot it, send him an email, subject line, DISC. Okay. And that's
it. Remember that, if I can add this, remember that all the discs are different. All right. So this is really a special disc because it is so accurate. All right. And most of none of the other ones are nearly as accurate as this. And when you get your report back from David, you'll see how easy it is to use, because so many of the pages are bulleted items and it's custom to you. All right. There's very little what we refer to as boilerplate in the reports.
Amazing opportunity, guys. I'm looking forward to it. I hope each and every one of you send Michael an email, because we're going to, 1, do a free assessment for you. 2, we're going to get you connected with Dr. Abelson. 3, we're going to send you information on his certification course. 4, we're going to send you information on how to become a licensee. So maybe if you want to include it in your listing presentations, you can send them that in advance. And that, I mean, who's doing that, guys? Who's doing that? Who's doing that? What seller will sit down and go, this realtor just sent me an assessment? Like, what are we doing here? And if you explain to them, listen, you take this assessment, it's going to be so much fun for you. First of all, number 1, because you're going to have a better understanding of your personality. But number 2, it's going to help me not piss you off. How about that? Right?
Well, if they're a D, they're going to love that, not piss you off.
Yeah.
So
yeah, if they're, and that's what I'm speaking like a D, right? You know, if you send me the assessment without that explanation, I may not take the assessment, because I'm a high D and I'm going, this shit's going to take 20 minutes of my life away. And I don't want to do this. Why the hell am I doing this? I'm just selling my house. But if you call me and you say, hey, this assessment's a lot of fun, you'll get something out of it personally, as well as I will have a better understanding of how not to piss you off in the future. I'm going to go, I'm taking this right now. Right. So you're going to get that great understanding and be able to connect with people. Dr. Abelson, thank you again for doing this with me. Such a pleasure and an honor to do this with you. By the way, this is recorded. It will end up on my YouTube. So message to viewers on YouTube. We will put the links for Dr. Abelson's course and licensing in the YouTube, as well as but we won't be doing the free profiles for you, because I don't know how many YouTube viewers are going to watch this. And if I get 1 million hits, sorry, guys, I can't do 1 million profiles, right? But for those of you that are live right now, email Michael at davidadamkurz.com. Subject line, just put DISC. You don't have to do anything else, DISC. Michael will collect your information, and we're going to do a great assessment for you. So thank you very much, Dr. Abelson. I really appreciate you. This means the world to us. People really enjoyed today's presentation. Guys, give them unmute everybody. I'm going to unmute everybody. Hold on. Ask all to unmute. Give Dr. Abelson a round of applause, guys. Give him a round of applause, man. Thank you so much.
Great job, guys.
Yes, thank you. This was
Awesome.
wonderful.
Thank you.
thank you,
Thank you.
everybody. Hope to see you in the future.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah.
Everybody do great. Have a fantastic week. We'll see you next Thursday.